do this thing. Oh, man. 2 days and 2 videos. Who is this guy? Who am I even? What's up, YouTube? My name's Sam Lucas. I'm a filmmaker based here in State College, Pennsylvania. I do work everywhere, though, so, you know, if you're watching this and you've got a film project that you want to make, hit me up, because I'd love to help you make it happen. But I woke up this morning, wanted to make another YouTube video, but I didn't really know what to talk about. And then Twitter, man, Twitter, is it even called Twitter anymore? I mean, X. I'm gonna call it Twitter because X is stupid. Twitter came through and somebody posted out on Twitter, and they essentially said something along the lines of, like, tweet your hot take, essentially. Like, what's your hot take about filmmaking that'll basically, like, make people throw stones? And that's what I'm going to talk about. It gave me some good inspiration because my hot take is something that I've actually talked about quite a bit. Not on YouTube, but just in general. I've had conversations about it. I've written about it. I have had this stance for a good long while, and I think it's a good thing to talk about. So, what is it? My hot take that people don't always agree with is that gear in filmmaking, the gear that we choose and use, actually matters, like a lot. Like a lot. And I don't really know where this sentiment, it's predominantly on YouTube. Actually, I do know where it came from, or at least where I was introduced to it. And I presume a lot of other people were also introduced to it, either directly or down the line, indirectly. Is if you've spent any time around the filmmaking community on YouTube for any extent of time in like the last 10 years, you know who Casey Neistat is. Well, Casey was pretty adamant in a lot of his videos that gear doesn't matter. And I think I understand the sentiment Casey was getting at when he said these things, or when he said that particularly. And I think what Casey was saying was that if the thing keeping you from creating something great, if the hang up for you is the gear, then don't let it be, right? Like, the gear should never be the reason you don't make something. If you have a camera, any camera, a cell phone, a 20-year-old point and shoot, a $10,000 setup like I'm shooting on right now, regardless of what you have in your possession, if you have a camera, go tell the story. And that I can be on board with. But even Casey would say, I use the best camera at any given moment when he wants to film something. He would say, I use the best camera at my disposal at the time that I need to film something. Now, best camera doesn't scream to me. It provides a little asterisk. It puts a little asterisk beside that statement that gear doesn't matter. So I want to unpack that a little bit, and I think it's a timely conversation too, because the whole dynamic going on right now in Hollywood is that this film just came out, The Creator, and it was shot on the Sony FX3, which is like I don't even know how much that camera costs, but it's less than $5,000. I'm almost sure. I'm gonna look it up. How much? Let's just see. B&H photo. Sony FX3. Yeah, the FX3 is a $4,000 camera. So, there's all this talk and all this like murmur around the filmmaking community, like, oh my gosh, the Creator was shot on the Sony FX3. It's like a super accessible camera. Like, tons of YouTubers have this camera. Tons of wedding filmmakers have this camera. And here's what I'll say to that is, if you think that the choice to shoot the Creator on the FX3 wasn't an incredibly intentional decision, you're just wrong. Like, that movie had an $80 million budget, an $80 million production budget. They could have shot on any camera they wanted. Legitimately, they could have. And they chose the FX3 very intentionally because the cinematographer and the director working on this film, the way they shoot is a very organic. They react to what's happening in the frame. That's how they shoot. They've talked about this publicly. Is they're pointing the camera at the talent, at the actors. The scene is unfolding in front of them, and they respond to what's happening on frame in real time. It's a very intuitive type of filmmaking. It's not this type of predetermined thing where they're setting all their A and B points, in and out points, and all this different stuff that is kind of more traditional filmmaking. It was guerrilla style filmmaking making its way into Hollywood blockbuster filmmaking, that is super cool to see. But because they shoot like that, they needed a camera package that was small, light, nimble, could produce the image quality, which I think is part of the argument. Is like there are so many great accessible cameras available these days that image quality really isn't the biggest. It used to be the biggest selling point for like these big, inaccessible, really expensive cinema cameras. Like the image quality was just so far ahead of everything else on the market. That's not the case anymore. Image quality isn't the main selling point of big, expensive cameras. There's other very practical things that make those cameras better use in certain scenarios than others. But my point is, if you think the creator was shot on a cheap, accessible, affordable Sony FX3 because they think that gear doesn't matter, like, rethink how you feel about it, because that's just not the case. It was a very intentional choice to shoot on that camera and to shoot in the way that they did. It was very, very intentional. And so this is where I fall on it, is like, if the gear doesn't matter whatsoever and all that matters is the story, pick up a pen and a piece of paper and go write a book. Like, you don't need a camera. If story's all that matters, you don't need a camera in that case. But we're filmmakers, right? We're visual storytellers, and in that, the gear really does matter, because you can't. This Canon L series 85mm Canon lens that I'm shooting on right now, you can't argue with me that there is not a very tangible difference in how this lens looks and feels to the viewer relative to the Atlas Orion anamorphic that I shot a short film on earlier this year in July. They are vastly different beasts, and I know I'm a DP, so I have a tendency to look for and notice these things, but in many cases it's not an overt thing. It's a feeling that you get, and you might not be able to. It's kind of like the bass guitar in music. Not a lot of people, except for bass players and maybe some other musicians, listen to a song and be like, that bass line sounds sick. But you know how empty a song would feel if it didn't have a bass guitar? The impact that the cameras and lenses that we choose to shoot on have on an image can sometimes be like that. It's not this over-the-top thing where you're like, oh yeah, that was shot on an anamorphic lens, or that was shot on a vintage lens. It's not this in-your-face type of feeling as much as it is, if it was done differently, it would feel vastly different, and you wouldn't be able to put your thumb on why, but you would know that something was different. And so that's where I sit on the gear conversation. Gear matters a lot. It's our job as visual storytellers to pick the gear. Again, like Casey Neistat said back in the day, the best gear that we have at our disposal to do the job at hand. And the beauty of the world that we live in is pretty much all the gear is at our disposal. Rental houses exist everywhere. They'll ship stuff to you super fast. Obviously the main restrictor is budget. And I get that, like, not every job has the budget for the best tool that is out there that exists to do the job. But the point is, gear matters a lot. It definitely affects the end result. It definitely affects the impact on the viewer. It definitely affects the feeling that your finished piece has. So I've been going for 11 minutes on this thing, so I'm gonna wrap it up. That was just a whole bunch of rambling, but that's how I feel. Gear matters a lot. Stop pretending like it doesn't. And if you want to pretend like gear doesn't matter, maybe pick a different art form, because this one might not be for you. That might be harsh, but it's how I feel, man. Don't come for me. Or if you do, just, let's have a conversation in the comments, because people get heated about this topic. So, all right. I appreciate you guys. To everybody that watched my last video, there was a few of you. Man, there was a couple of people in the comments on my last video that I've met here over the years on YouTube, that it was just great hearing from you guys. When you're a small YouTube channel like this, and you have a couple people that you've been able to connect with over the years, it just kind of makes it worth it when you hear from them again after uploading for the first time in a long time, and they pop up in the comments. You're like, dude, I haven't spoken to this person in forever. It's super cool. That's the type of community building I really love on YouTube. So loved hearing from you guys. If you got anything out of this, do the YouTube thing, the like, comment, subscribe stuff, and let me know that you enjoyed it, that you got something out of it. And we will see you in the next one. All right. Peace.